So you know what? Don't even buy a laptop if you are going to work from home. It's just so much easier to build something yourself. So why is that? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. First up, before we get into the video, I would like to thank Gigabyte AORUS for providing me all of the parts for this computer build that you see in front of you. I made a PC build video with them last year, and I really wanted to take the time to update my thoughts on building and see what was on the market for you to build your own. And specifically, the reason I'm making this video right now is not a coincidence. I recently went to a local micro center to purchase a new monitor, and in that trip, they just so happened to have a brand new 3080 Ti for purchase. I didn't need to enter a raffle or other weird stuff. I just walked in and bought it, which is pretty crazy considering how the last year has gone for graphics cards. So it seems like in my personal experience, the hardware crunch might be easing up a tad, which is great because it's no fun to make these videos if you can't go out and build something too. I wouldn't want to talk about this stuff if I didn't think you had a reasonable chance to do the same. Additionally, this isn't going to be a full build video. Obviously, here's the built computer in front of you. That was my original plan, but I'm still kind of a novice at building, and there were a lot of unfamily-friendly words said during that build. If you want to see a walkthrough and how I build PCs, I will leave a link to the description for that build from last year. What we're going to talk about today is the main reasons why I think building a PC is the better option if you are going to be somebody like me and you're not actually going to be traveling all that much. So like, what good is a laptop when you could get so much power for less? And that's the first reason I want to touch on: price. While this build specifically is kind of pricey, you can get real computer power for relatively cheaply anymore, especially when you look at something like what we've got here from the Ryzen processor line. This build has a Ryzen 7 5800X processor, which is an 8-core 16-thread monster that runs you about $400 depending on the deal you can find. But the best part about PC building, and one that we will talk much more in depth here in a little bit, is while this higher end middle of the pack CPU does provide a lot of power, you could also get something a little further down the line and save bank. You could get something in the Ryzen 5 series like the 2600X or the 5600X for around $150 less. And that's just one of the best parts about building it yourself. You aren't married to whatever processor the OEM has decided would fit their build. I mean, heck, so long as you have a compatible motherboard, you could use something from last year if you really needed to pare your budget down. Hey, you also don't like that a certain laptop has budget RAM but charges premium prices for it? I didn't call out a specific company here because it definitely looks like they all do it now, which is sad face. You can specifically go out and buy the memory, size, and clock speed you want. And as a personal note, again, clicking in the RAM is easily my favorite part of any build. Now, I'm not going to go through and talk about every single component in the rig and how you can save money, but there are a few key components that I do want to talk about. If CPUs are the brains of the computer, motherboards, you see everything that this is plugged into, that's the nervous system. It provides all the power and logic to the components, so it better be a good one, right? Sometimes you can get real RGB centric boards, but I don't really like RGB all that much. So this X570 Aero board and the B550 Vision board I used last year are like the perfect hub of any regular person's build. They've got a ton of I/O, easy access to all the headers, and you can get a lot of PCIe slots too. Yes, they are pricey, but again, you can actually pick out whatever you want. Just make sure that your CPU is compatible with your motherboard. That's like the biggest beginner mistake that you can make. The other component that I would specifically call out in this build, again for its lack of RGBness, is the Vision 3080 graphics card. This graphics card is actually the whole reason I'm making the video. We talked about it a little earlier, but my frustration with the 3080's release seems to finally be cooling, and we can get our hands on these cards again. This 3080 puts out a ton of graphical power and will easily last years into the future, and thankfully, it'll do that without putting out any kind of crazy color. So I'm not going to bore you here with the total component list. I'll leave links in the description for everything that we're talking about today, but you can go to a website like PC Part Picker and easily build your own system to perfectly match your budget, and I can almost guarantee that whatever you build, it will be far more powerful than if you had spent that money on a laptop. The next reason to build your own PC is the build itself. Building PCs is a ton of fun, and it's not nearly as difficult as you might think. Yes, if you search YouTube videos for builds, there are a ton of guides, and it can feel very daunting and nerve-wracking the first time you do it. Remember, I built my first PC about a year ago, and I was very nervous the whole time. But what I like, this is my third one, so what I like to think about now is that it's an exercise in creative problem solving. It's just a fascinating puzzle of how to get all the components in the right spots and done correctly. I do consider this more of a puzzle than Legos, because Legos you can put them in any random order and you'll still have a Lego construction afterwards. Here, there is a right answer. You just need to find it. But what's even better is there's a lot of help to get you to that right answer. Every component will come with an instruction manual of how to properly assemble and install it. The motherboard itself will come with a huge sheet of where everything needs to be plugged in to properly turn on the first time. Okay, if there were one part that really sucks and can be frustrating, it's getting all of the things plugged into the front header down here. I hate doing this every time, but if you can get this set up right, you can get the rest of the build completed easily. There is nothing more satisfying than hitting the power button for the first time on a freshly built PC and having everything just start running smoothly. Conversely, there is nothing more frustrating than hitting that button and it not working. But it's give and take, right? You can't have that high of it working without going through the frustration of figuring out what's not right. The real takeaway is that the build is a process, and I'm certainly nothing even close to an expert, and I've successfully built 3 PCs over the last year without any major incident. Remember, I said it in the beginning, if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. They're not just funny words that I say. The next major point and why I would say to build a PC instead of buying a laptop should come as no surprise: the power. Because they are bigger, can draw more power, and can be cooled far more effectively, these components at the same price points will generally be far more powerful. Yes, there's always exceptions to the rules, but generally speaking, these will be more powerful. We've already mentioned the CPU for this build. For $400, you can get a cutting-edge 8-core 16-thread processor that can really wipe the floor with whatever else you will find in the laptop world. Just so you can see I'm not blowing smoke here, here is a Cinebench score from the Ryzen 5900HX, which is the current top-of-the-line laptop processor that's in my Asus G17. And here's the score from the 5800X. Yes, the 5900HX is powerful, and it's as powerful as some desktop, but it's also going to run very hot in that laptop shell, and it will just not be able to keep up with modern desktop CPUs. I could go through other things like this and a ton of other benchmarks for other components, but generally, price to price, the desktop parts will come out on top. And while we have, yes, talked about CPUs, the real difference for me is the GPUs. Look, laptop GPUs can absolutely be powerful things. A lot of the newer ones even have some of the same technologies built on them and are built off of similar architectures. But there really isn't much of a comparison to those and one of these desktop-sized graphical monsters, especially if you get one of the newer 3000 series of cards. Yes, AMD makes graphics cards too, but I've always been an NVIDIA fan, even though they totally botch and mess up literally every single graphics card release. It's like part of their company DNA is to screw up graphics cards releases. If you are any sort of a power user, there isn't that much of a comparison to make here. And the last reason why you should build your own is longevity. If a part in a laptop fails, you might or might not be able to replace it. While Apple gets a lot of flack here, it's not just them. There are a ton of companies moving towards everything being soldered down with only their technicians able to enact repairs. And that's if you are lucky. If a component in my PC goes bad, I just replace the component. And since I built the computer, I know exactly how to do it. If something fails on the motherboard, yeah, I would probably need to replace the motherboard and then all the components plugged into it, which would be a huge pain in the butt. But I could still do it myself. And not only are these entirely on me to fix, but upgrading? Do you think you can upgrade the CPU in your laptop? Absolutely not. Here's like a 15-minute job. Every piece in here is upgradable, so as soon as I need to new anything, I just pop the old one out and pop it in. That will get you to save money in both components of not needing to buy a new computer every few years to stay on top of power requirements, but you'll also save a ton on labor costs. And the cherry on top of this is most of these components should last far longer than their laptop counterparts because this can be properly thermally managed. You see these gigantic fans? There's 2 gigantic fans here. There's a gigantic fan here. I'm probably going to put a couple more down here. They will keep this in the 30 to 50 degree range at all times. My Windows laptops hit 50 degrees just turning it on. 70 to 90 degrees is at best the temperature you'll get, and that's going to be on a larger device with bigger, more efficient cooling. The smaller those devices get, either they've got to be less powerful or they will just not be as properly thermally managed. So because this will run cooler, these components should last much longer, so long as you're not like overclocking them and stressing them out in other ways, I guess. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Look, laptops have their place. I love them and I'm very fascinated by them, and we'll still make content about them here on the channel. But they are kind of impractical for a lot of people that aren't going to be moving or traveling, both from a price perspective, but also from a what you get for your money perspective. Building a PC, if you've never done it before, can be intimidating, but it's not impossible. And seriously, if I can build one, anyone can build one of these things. And it's really nice to be able to fully work on your own machine if you need to. If you were in the market for a new computer, I would say check some of these components out and see if you can save some money and have a fun puzzle to put together at the same time. And if you like this video and you would like to see an assortment of my other content, I'll leave a couple of playlists here for some Apple stuff, for some Windows stuff, and you can go check out some cool laptops there too. Maybe you do need a laptop, I don't know. You can check it out by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.